Hey there guys and gals, welcome back to Back Pocket Game Reviews, and today we're going to review Far Cry New Dawn. So Far Cry New Dawn did kind of a weird job advertising itself because not a lot of people caught on to the fact that this is essentially an expansion. A lot of people just sort of took it as it was like Far Cry Primal, where it's just kind of a weird little spin-off, but this is actually more of an expansion to Far Cry 5. It does reutilize a lot of Far Cry 5's assets, as in like the map, but also those assets have changed drastically due to the events that took place at the end of Far Cry 5. And to be as blunt as I can with you, if you like Far Cry 5, this is essentially a whole bunch more Far Cry 5, with some new things obviously built in. The world has obviously changed, as I said, due to the events of the end of Far Cry 5. However, the color palette, rather than going backwards, in most post-apocalyptic games, you're going to see a very, well, bland color palette. This is probably the most colorful and beautiful post-apocalyptic game I have ever seen. It's very odd to see a lot of color in these style of games, but they do a great job, especially if you're playing this on a set that has HDR, whether it be a monitor or a TV. This game really, really shines with HDR enabled. Far Cry 5 did as well, but they were more natural colors, and this is still natural-ish colors, but there's just a whole lot more of them. And as I said, this map does feel new despite being on the same map as the original Far Cry 5. It is also slightly smaller than Far Cry 5, and there is reason for that, and they do kind of touch on that a little bit. And if you haven't played Far Cry 5, I would probably, again, strongly suggest that you do that before touching Far Cry New Dawn. A lot of things are going to be talked about that happened in Far Cry 5, and this is essentially going to give you closure to the story that unfolded in 5. You're also going to have a lot of the same characters that are going to carry over. And the weird part here is there's actually a lot of added benefits that happen in Far Cry New Dawn. There are new pieces that actually fit a lot better than they did in Far Cry 5. Obviously, the Far Cry series allows you to have companions, and, well, in this particular Far Cry game, you're able to have your dog companion, who was also, there's a different dog companion in Far Cry 5, and they're going to kind of hint into what happened with some of the characters that obviously aren't around in this one, because this takes place, I believe it's about 20 years in the future past the ending of Far Cry 5. So obviously a lot of things have changed. A lot of the characters clearly aren't going to be able to be in this game due to age and stuff like that. They're going to add some new companions. Obviously there are some people that carry over. I don't really want to give too much of that away because it's going to be kind of a spoiler territory if I did. And they're going to even kind of touch on what happened to the protagonist in Far Cry 5 after the events that unfolded at the end, for those of you who have played it. And I mean, it's kind of dark. It's probably one of the darker things than I didn't expect it to be the way that it was. Granted, there's a part of me that's like, oh man, you probably should have seen that coming, but it's one of those things that's going to kind of take you by surprise. I mean, they do a very good job of making this story feel very fresh and new and different. These protagonists that are particularly in this one, and you might be like, why is he focusing on the protagonists? That is a big staple of Far Cry 5. They make a very big deal out of their protagonist, and they very much so make them kind of a focal point. There are two protagonists in this one, and they are twin sisters, and that is going to play a part. It's going to kind of be Mad Max-ish, while kind of still being its own thing. It's really hard to kind of explain how this goes. There's going to be a lot of pieces of it, though, that take nods from other post-apocalyptic sort of pop culture references, whether it be, obviously, as I stated, Mad Max, or even some in Fallout. They do a very good job at tying in a bunch of Easter eggs, and they're very well done. Again, the gameplay overall feels very much so like Far Cry 5, though, when we talk about the controls and even the way the driving is done. I forget who it was that I just watched. Oh, it was the Quartering. He was talking about how he thought the driving in this game was so terrible. And really, if you've never played Far Cry and 5 was your first game, that is a huge improvement from where the driving was. It is not the worst driving experience I've ever had in a game. But the first Far Cry games, they were pretty close. Ubisoft really couldn't do driving well, and Far Cry 5 really kind of changed that. But you are going to have this new dog companion as well. And the fun fact is when you get into a car now, he used to not be able to come with you. So if you played 5, the dog companion that you had there, Boomer, he wasn't able to get into the car with you. The new one is. I don't remember the new dog's name because he wasn't the one I used. Again, I don't really want to give away names because that is going to kind of venture into spoiler territory for any of you who are like, well, let me wait and pick this up. Maybe till it goes on sale. Not everyone wants to drop money on a game, but this game did release for $40, so it is kind of already cheaper than most. And the story isn't really going to feel recycled at all. There's nothing about this story where you're going to be like, oh man, this is just Far Cry 5, except for the actual gameplay is going to feel like more Far Cry 5, but with a bunch of new changes. You are now going to see the damage that you do to each enemy. They do take some nods to RPG elements. Again, that whole seeing the damage that you're dealing to each enemy is very new in this franchise. That's not something they've ever touched on before. It's always been like just any other shooter where they may have a health bar and that'll be it. You don't know how much damage you're inflicting each shot. And it is, I don't want to say I'd want to see it in every Far Cry game, but it is something that did help for this particular setting that this Far Cry game specifically is taking place in. And it again is going to be a very fun experience for you. I enjoyed this game a lot, but I've also been a huge Far Cry fan for a while now. Far Cry 3 was one of my favorite games. I still enjoyed 4 despite a lot of the lackluster reviews of 4. A lot of that came from a lot of people didn't really like Pagan Min as the antagonist in that. And that's the thing. As I said, the antagonist is something that Far Cry puts a huge focus on. They do a very good job at making a very convincing and very easy to dislike bad guy. And 3 was a prime example where Voss, the main bad guy, he was really well liked despite being some dude who was on the brink of sociopathy. I mean, that dude was literally all out crazy. And I would probably say these two baddies in this one, the two girls, the two sisters, feel very similar to Voss did. They both have slightly different personalities, which you'll see when you play the game, if you play the game. But overall, there were a lot of bad reviews for this game, and that's kind of the thing that kind of bothered me here. Was just I don't feel that it deserved it, and a lot of those people didn't go into it reviewing it as if it were essentially what it is, an expansion pack. It is just a standalone expansion pack. You don't have to own 5 to play this. I would just recommend that you own 5 or have played 5 to understand the story of this. And it's interesting because the developers of Far Cry 5 even stated that they didn't originally intend on doing this story. It just sort of happened. And the evolution of it and the environment, all of it feels good. The gameplay feels good. The story feels very, very interesting, especially if you enjoyed 5's story. You're probably going to enjoy this, especially getting to see the closure of a lot of those characters' stories and really how that all plays out for them. But guys, let me know down below what you thought. If you've played Far Cry New Dawn, if it's something you think that you're going to wait for to go on sale, I'm just kind of curious to where you guys sit with it. Maybe you absolutely hate Far Cry. I would like to actually kind of know why on that. If outside of if it's I just don't like shooters, I get it. Some people don't like shooter games. But guys, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to drop a thumbs up. Also, if you're new to the channel, you can click that subscribe button, ding the little bell if you want notifications for when I upload new content, and I'll see you all soon with plenty more content coming for you, so stick around.
I'm heading that way.